Hello and welcome back to 1874, the podcast. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletics' Gregg Evans to look back over Aston Villa 1, Bournemouth 1, a frustrating end to the game at Villa Park on Saturday. This show is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can get a huge discount and 4 months free if you use our code, and it's completely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's not a code, actually. Just go to 1874.io/NordVPN and you'll find out everything you need to do. There's also some information in the description on the video via YouTube, and I presume in the description for the audio podcast as well. But we'll hear a little bit more about Nord later on in the show. As I say, I'm joined by global Gregg Evans. Gregg, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, Dan. I'm all right. I was going to say, what's the opposite of fresh, but it's probably a word that I can't say on this podcast.
Okay.
Same letter.
too much golf?
I wish it was too much golf.
Too much covering
although
Liverpool,
I did sneak in a few holes last week, despite all the rain and the dark nights now, which are soon coming. So yeah. Just quite a lot of work, quite a lot of writing over the last couple of weeks. Bit of a brain freeze today, so yeah, let's hope I get through this okay.
I know you're working on a very exciting project at the moment. I won't spoil what it is, but how is that coming along, and when are you going to be able to tell people about it?
It's been ongoing for a very long time, but hopefully we'll be able to say a little bit more in the coming weeks.
Yeah, people who listen and watch this podcast will be very interested by what Gregg's been working on, beavering away behind the scenes. He has been. So yeah, as soon as Gregg can reveal what that is, I'm sure he'll talk about it on the podcast. Right then, Gregg, Aston Villa 1, Bournemouth 1. I've got to say, I really, really enjoyed Villa's performance again. Sat there at Villa Park, just marvelling at some of the football we play. We are so good. The way we move the ball around, the way we manipulate the positioning and players popping up in areas. I just think we're so good. Unfortunately, we didn't see out the last 5 to 10 seconds of the game. I've got to say, I'd forgotten how annoying it is when you can see the goal and then the whistle goes for you to kick off, and then the whistle goes for full time and the game's over, and you just think, if only we could have held on for another 10 seconds. But I think it's worth saying that in the last 2 years, I don't remember feeling like that too many times, if at all. The closest game, which we're going to talk about, was Arsenal early on in Emery's tenure. But it isn't too often that Villa don't see out a lead, in particular at Villa Park. So we can't be too hard on them. We can't be too upset. But it's a devastating way to lose a game. Sorry, to draw a game. Feels like a lot.
Yeah, it feels like a defeat, doesn't it, when it comes so late? I agree with a lot of that. Really, really frustrating for Villa to throw it away so late on. I do think that it was inevitable though, almost, because it felt like the last sort of 5 or 6 minutes of the game that they were just a little bit loose. Villa gave away too many fouls. Reminded me of one of the games last season where they kept giving away fouls and eventually conceded from a set piece. Was that Bournemouth as well, or Brentford?
Could have been Brentford.
Yeah, 3-3. It might have been the Brentford game. So apologies for not remembering the exact game, but yeah, it just reminded me very much of one that finished in a similar way. Look, a couple of 3 disappointing draws really now, in Man United, Ipswich and Bournemouth, games that if Villa want to kick on this season, they would have been hoping to get more points from. I don't think it's the end of the world because, it keeps the unbeaten run going. I don't think we've seen a manner of this draw, conceding so late on and not been able to see out the game for quite some time. Yeah, the Arsenal game, very similar in some ways because Villa were just kicking it long a little bit too often. At points in the second half, it felt like they just moved away from the composed, measured game plan that Emery asks for. And probably loose is the best word to describe it. Just a little bit loose. And in the end, Bournemouth kept plugging away and got a goal, didn't they? They love a late goal, don't they, Bournemouth?
They stayed in the game, didn't they?
They just score so many late goals.
Yeah, I think Villa, even I would have said after the game that Villa were comfortably the better team, but Bournemouth just kind of hung on in there through the game, just made sure the game never got away from them at any point. I actually think, Gregg, that Villa scored too late. I think had that Duran shot gone in, there's a bit more time left on the clock. I don't think Villa revert to the way they reverted to had Duran scored that chance, because there's a little bit longer in the game left. I think they would have just carried on what they were doing, played with that controlled manner that they normally do, looking after the ball. And I think potentially they then go and win 2-0 with Bournemouth pushing up. But because the goal from Barkley came so late, I think we scored. There wasn't long left on the clock. We made a substitution to bring Kamara on for Watkins, which is probably a fair substitution given that you're no longer chasing the goal to go ahead in the game. I think what that did is it just made us sit in a little bit more than we normally would, and we went away from the things that we're normally good at, and we did keep giving away free kicks. Bournemouth, are, like many teams in the Premier League now, are very, very adept at set pieces, and I guess I don't think Bournemouth deserved the goal, but you could see it coming because we just kept doing silly things.
Yeah, I agree a little bit. I do think there have been, other games that Villa have scored late in and then gone on to actually win it. Look back at the Wolves game.
Yeah.
Scored quite late, didn't they? And then went on and got 2 more to win 3-1. So, perhaps I just think the better chances for Villa were in the first half, weren't they? They could have been ahead, and had a bit of distance between themselves if they'd put some of those chances away. Travers comes in for Kepa and has an unbelievable game, doesn't he? I mean, what I haven't looked at the expected goals tally, but I presume it would have been quite high because some of those chances in the first half, they were brilliant saves, weren't they?
I mean, he's come in and had the game of his life. It reminded me of a game in the Championship, which I'm sure you remember, Greg, against Bristol City. Villa won that game, but the sub-goalkeeper came in for a game and literally had the game of his life at Villa Park. I've completely forgotten his name.
Was that during the 10-game run, was it?
Yeah, I thought I'll never forget that goalkeeper's name, and I've forgotten his name now. But he had an absolute worldie of a game. I'm sure someone will tell me in the chat what his name was. But I've got to say, I mentioned Kepa in the match preview because I felt like Kepa had his only good game in a Chelsea shirt at Villa Park when Chelsea beat us 2-0 at the end of Gerrard's reign. Travers coming in has turned into an absolute disaster for Villa because he has had the game of his life. He'll probably never have a game like that ever again.
No, and look, I mean that's why you can't get too down with the draw, because the game plan was there for 85 minutes. I think the performance was there certainly in the first half. They were great in the first half, Villa, and to be fair, into the second half, they dominated the game. They controlled the game. I thought it was just a little bit loose at the end. The chances that they created in the first half, really impressive. Lots of creativity from set pieces again. Nana had a great chance, a really well worked move. Just kept Bournemouth guessing on what they were going to do next. So there wasn't that much wrong. It was just the way it turned out at the end, unfortunately.
I don't think it was dissimilar to the Bologna game, where I thought we were absolutely brilliant on Wednesday. I thought we played some really nice stuff. It was kind of back to the Cash came in as we predicted in the preview. Jacob and myself, Luca Dean came back in for Maatsen. It was kind of McGinn started as well. I quite like McGinn on one flank and Ramsey on the other. There's something about that I really liked. And then Cash could provide the width when it was when he was able to from that right hand side. So it was basically the fullbacks offering the width from both. So Villa played some really nice intricate stuff, particularly in that first half. And I still don't think he's fully there. His final wall was perhaps lacking at certain times, but Ramsey was a constant thorn in the Bournemouth side in that first half. He kept popping up in dangerous areas. Bournemouth actually had to make a full-back substitution because of the amount of problems Ramsey was causing them.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had to bring on an actual right back who knew sort of how to hold his position, because it looked like he was just jumping out a little bit too often. The previous player who went off. When Smith come on, he sort of controlled. He didn't contain Ramsey completely, but Bournemouth were a bit more solid defensively. Yeah, I think they knew what they were doing a bit more. Ramsey got into some brilliant positions early on. Yeah, I agree with you with the final ball. The McGinn goal that was chalked off, that should have been a simple cross pass to Watkins and a tap in. Really, should never have got to that stage where that it had to fall back to McGinn and the goal was disallowed because it went out of play. So you got to look at Ramsey to put in a better cross first and foremost, and then it wouldn't get to that stage. But the driving runs, the clever move, the clever runs and movement that he was making was causing a lot of problems. And I do think he's growing back into it now. Yeah, he just needs this rhythm and regular run of games, and we're going to see the old Ramsey back, I'm sure.
He needs to stay fit. I think if he was to go down with another niggle, that would be a disappointment. I think just as he was starting to get going again, he got a niggle against Bayern and missed maybe one, or I think he only missed one game in the end because of the international break. But that was a blow. He just needs to continue plugging away and continue playing. I think he got that goal in the Champions League, but it's weird. Like a few players kind of watch them and think he just needs a goal to kind of kickstart himself. He probably does just need a goal in the Premier League, Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I think more importantly, it's just the run of games, isn't it? He needs that. He needs to stay fit and play regularly because you've seen what can happen when you do with the likes of Rodgers. He's had that run of games and has been really impressive. Didn't think he was great at the weekend,
No,
but
he wasn't.
That's the beauty of this Villa squad now, that they can turn to players on the bench who will come on and make a difference.
Yeah, Rodgers was quiet, wasn't he? He's never going to play well every single week. But sometimes even in the games where he might be a little bit quieter, he has at least one driving run. But I think Bournemouth kind of did a job on him tactically. He never really seemed to have any space to run into. And I noticed a couple of things that Bournemouth did well, particularly in the first half. They wouldn't let us build it from the back the way we wanted to. They kind of kept covering off Pau Torres and Tielemans. They identified them as the players Villa like to play through from goal kicks. So it always had to go to Konsa, who's a good distributor, but he's not as good as Pau Torres and Tielemans. More from that side than the left hand side, which I don't think is what they would have wanted to have done.
No, and had to use Martinez a little bit more as well, didn't they? Because he was often the only spare man. That's what happens typically when you go sort of man for man, which they did at times. I thought they did okay, Bournemouth. I think we're probably at the stage now where we just look at Bournemouth as just this little sort of club, don't we? They're a relatively small club in the Premier League, but they're a decent side now, aren't they? And we probably don't give them the respect that perhaps they deserve. They've had some decent results this season, and are a threat. And obviously, the coach knows Emery because he's come up against him previously. I don't think he'd ever got the better of Emery previously, so he was very respectful of him post and pre-match. Highlighted the brilliant job that he's done at Villa, but was very clear that he knew what he was going to do. And I think that helps. I think perhaps facing him previously, he said, didn't he, that a lot of the time Emery's teams, they set up the same. We know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, he does. Obviously, I think to say that, I don't think he means it in the way that he said it. Actually, in terms of the kind of off the ball system 4-4-2, that will stay the same. But there are little things that change every single week in terms of the build up play, and sometimes they'll go long, sometimes they'll pass it through the lines. Sometimes people will be popping up in positions you wouldn't normally expect them to, depending on who's playing where. For example, the width usually comes from the winger on the right hand side. On this occasion, McGinn was playing on the right hand side, so Cash had the license to get forward a little bit. Although Emery's talked, hasn't he, about building up with a 2 rather than a 3 this season. Still, more often than not, we've seen that 3. I'm still not sure about us building up as a 2. I'm not sure it works in transition as well.
Yeah, I think what he meant in terms of Emery's style is just that typically, that his teams aren't going to dominate possession majorly. They're going to allow the opposition team to have a fair bit of ball if they need it. They're going to be brilliant in the transition, which Emery has shown since he's come to Villa. It's not about so much. Yes, he wants the control and he'd like the extra possession, but it's more important to be better in the transition, and that's what this Villa team has shown for so long, I think now. Yeah.
I just want to ask you about Onana. The referee, it wasn't even a dirty game. There's 12 yellow cards, which is absolutely staggering. I just want to ask you about Onana. He got booked very early in the game. I think it was like 3 minutes in. Curtails what he's able to do a little bit when you obviously get booked that early, and he's come off at half time yet again.
Yeah,
making of that, because it's almost like a substitution you can predict now that Barkley will. If Villa aren't winning, Barkley will come on at half time for Onana.
I think it just feeds back into the what we talked about at the start of the season, that Villa, Emery wanted a squad of players that were all very equal in talent, in terms of the level that they're at. So when one player doesn't perform as well as he does, another can come in straight away. So he looks at that, and he really likes Barkley. It wasn't a long-term scouting mission or anything to get hold of Barkley. It was a case of he played very well against Villa, and then they followed him for a little bit, and Emery recommended him, and the owners give it him because the owners give everything to Emery, and there we go. So it's a pretty straightforward move, very similar with Rodgers in some ways. Finn Azaz goes to Middlesbrough. Aston Villa have got FFP issues, and they signed Morgan Rodgers for Middlesbrough because Emery thought he was good in the cup. So yeah, it's an interesting recruitment strategy, shall we say? But the squad that Villa have built is very talented, and it just means that if Tielemans or McGinn or Onana or Barkley aren't performing, if they start, then one of the others can come in. And I think Onana, he's probably the midfielder I'd say that you would least want on a yellow card.
Yeah, because that's going to be his game, isn't it? Trying to break up the play a little bit more so than the.
I just think, it's more. Yeah, he's more liable to get another one, isn't it?
Yeah, what I thought was interesting. We can talk about Villa's recruitment and obviously talk about the improvement in the players under Emery. When Barkley came on at half time, I was looking at our team and thinking, 7 of these players are from the COVID team.
It's incredible.
Dean Smith. So considering the amount of churn that clubs have, and a lot of the big boys in particular, Villa had 7 players on the pitch at the start of the second half who are actually here in the 2020-21 season. I think that's absolutely amazing. I do, Greg.
Couple of things that you can take from that. One that Villa were actually very close when they sacked Dean Smith, and they're very close in terms of the squad that they had. And at that point, all they really needed was an elite manager to come in and take them forward. They thought that they were going to get that in Gerrard because of how well he interviewed and the presentation that he put across to the owners and the board. The process was right. They went through they interviewed all the other candidates. They looked at Graham Potter, who was very highly rated at that point, but he was too expensive because Brighton were asking for nearly £20 million in compensation. Gerrard was the one that didn't cost that much and was the standout candidate out of the shortlist that was whittled down from the long list. So the intentions were right. The analysis was right. The squad was there. They just needed that elite coach to take them on. And unfortunately, Gerrard couldn't do that, but Emery and his team have. And, you got to give credit to the recruiters previously, because when Villa lost Grealish, we were all saying, how is it physically possible for a team to lose their best player and get better? It just doesn't happen. We've seen it with Bale at Tottenham. They had to sign 5 or 6 players, didn't they, to try and replace him. Hazard when he left Chelsea. I'm sure there are other examples that I can't think of off the top of my head, but the players that Villa got in were pretty decent players, and they've shown that now.
Yeah, there's a couple of delve into the chat. Sort of Metsai AVFC, who's always watching our shows at the weekend when he stays awake. He has fallen asleep through a few of the podcasts that we've done previously. But I met him before the game, and just a shout out to Phil 1982 here. I met him and his grandson. His grandson had a sign for Onana. Can I have your shirt, please?
Oh, did he get it? Yeah.
Well, no, he didn't get it. Onana keeps going off at half time. So
he
did pick the worst player to ask for his shirt, really. Hasn't he? Because Onana shirt's already in the washing basket, I suspect, at half time. I just thought that was quite funny after the game. He could do with Onana not getting subbed off at half time, because he plans to recycle that sign and use it again.
He could do with him starting on the bench, probably, couldn't he? Because typically most of the top level players come on, don't they?
Yeah. And again, Villa, loads of options to bring on from the bench change again. Duran comes on, Maatsen and Bailey come on as well. Barkley's obviously already come on at half time. And it was the 3 subs that linked up for the goal. We've had the West Ham game where I think 3 subs linked up for the winner against West Ham. 3 subs have linked up again for a goal here. I think Villa have scored 5 goals from substitutes in the Premier League so far this season. Obviously, most of them. John Duran, that must be the record at the moment. We must be winning, winning that. You would think. So actually, I don't think Barkley caught it cleanly. I think he was going to take something either absolutely sublime or ridiculous to beat Travers the way the game was going. I don't think he caught it as he would wanted, but just wanted to give Bailey a little bit of credit, because I think he did really well to cushion that header down to Barkley to create that opportunity.
Yeah, it's probably one of the harder chances to take, wasn't it? In some ways, yeah. Credit to Bailey, come on and did that, of course. Do think that, I think that side of the pitch was perhaps a bit of an issue defensively in the closing stages. It felt like a lot of the attacks were coming down that way, and yeah, just Villa were giving away a few too many fouls, weren't they? There was one from Konza or Cash, wasn't it, before Barkley gave his away, and yeah, I just felt that it felt like something was coming almost, but yeah, look, there are plenty of options for Villa now, and I think they can mix it up when they need to.
Yeah, I'm upset for Barkley. He's obviously got his first goal of the season. He's been a really good squad member so far this season, low maintenance, but I'm sure he wants to start games, but he's understood his role. He's come off the bench nearly every game, and nearly every game he's added something to Villa. He added a different dimension to them when he's come onto the pitch. So I was really pleased for him to get the goal. I don't know him, but I feel like he might be quite a shy guy. Is what I've garnered from his time at Villa, and I just think he's a good squad member that we've got there, and he's going to be really valuable through the season. So I feel sad for him that he scored that goal and then he gave away the free kick that ultimately has cost Villa the game. But you're right, there was a lot happened even before then. Perhaps a little bit lucky not to give away a penalty, Greg. There's 2 incidents there. I don't think either were.
Yeah, maybe the Cash one more so, if anything. No, maybe not. No, I think they were both the right decision.
Did hit Bailey's arm.
I know. I don't think he. I suppose the only way you could look at it, the only argument that you could put up as to why it wasn't, was if that was on the line, it would be given, wouldn't it? Because it would stop. If it stopped a goal scoring opportunity, for example, I think that would be given. So then, but I just felt like he didn't try to touch it, and then clearly the VAR thought the same.
It was because I just think it didn't get given because there was no one anywhere near him. So you can't say his hand's in an unnatural position because he jumped to try and head the ball, but he has just got it a little bit wrong, hasn't he? And he hit him on the arm. I think if there's someone like with him, like competing for the ball, or anyone near him that could pick that ball up afterwards, do you think maybe then it gets given?
Yeah, I mean, look, in a different scenario, it might have been given, but it wasn't for what it was. They looked at it and thought that it wasn't an intentional handball.
No, I mean we now.
I don't think it was either, to be honest. No. But I mean, look, we're talking about decisions like this every week, aren't we now? And
I don't know.
And they're still so debatable, aren't they? It's like, I mean, we've gone way past why VAR was introduced and whether it's worked or not. But it was supposed to just take any debate out, wasn't it? And it just isn't. Because we're still talking about some decisions that get given and some don't, and there's just no clarity there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Sniffrat saying if the roles were reversed, we'd be screaming for 2 pens. Well, you're probably not wrong there. That's just how football fans work. I guess we're now treated, Greg, I don't know whether you saw, to Premier League match centre tweets when there's a decision. So when the goal was disallowed, when the penalty claims were waved away, we now get Premier League match centre tweets on the big screen at Villa Park, so we know what's happened, which
it's better, isn't it?
Bit of a step forward. I'd rather know what was going on at the time and see the process like you do when you're watching a game at home on the telly, on Sky or TNT. But credit where it's due, it's a little bit of a positive that we now get to see that, because we do have some semblance of idea of what's actually happened.
Yeah, massively for that. It was absolutely ridiculous how if you're in a stadium, you'd find out last as to what's actually happened, because first of all, if the game's on TV, the commentators tend to find out a few seconds before, and then it's portrayed on the screen, and then the supporters who are inside the stadium find out. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, we're going to look in a bit more detail as to what happened to Villa at the end of the game in a second. But before we do, let's just hear a little bit more from NordVPN. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too. Yep, something that I use, NordVPN. I can't recommend it more highly. Is that the right phrase? I can't recommend it more highly. Highly enough. I just couldn't get that. Get that out. Then, Greg. Yeah, thank you very much for helping me out there. So yeah, do check out NordVPN if you think that can help you at this time. As I say, we appreciate money's tight at the moment. If you think NordVPN can be of value, then go and have a look at what they do. We have talked about the end of the game, Greg, but I guess Villa will be. Once you've given away a free kick in a dangerous position, you know it's the last second. The goalkeeper, I'm surprised Travers didn't go up there and over a kick one in all honesty, the way his game was going. It's a great header from Evan Nilsson. I've got to say, I think it's a really, really smart header. He does really well. But it does, when I've seen the goal back, it does feel a little bit easy to get in between Villa's two defensive players, and he's on his own. It's a good delivery from Tavernier, but he's got in between Cash and Duran. I think it wasn't it. Does just feel like an unchallenged header at that juncture of the game is disappointing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if they exactly planned for that as well, because the delivery was decent, but it did feel a little bit flat as well at the same time, didn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine if that doesn't clear the first man kind of thing, you get really frustrated from a Bournemouth point of view in the last kick of the game, and it literally was the last kick of the game, wasn't it? Which makes it even more frustrating for Villa. But I think Villa should have learnt their lesson previously, because just a couple, as I said earlier, a minute earlier or 2 minutes earlier, was it Konza or Cash who gave away the foul? I can't remember. Just a few minutes earlier, and there was another free kick conceded. So they've just got to, in those moments, I think they just need to keep their cool, remember what the managers taught them, and try and execute the plan with a bit more composure. Can you look at it and say that a bit of mental fatigue maybe was starting to kick in with the amount of games that they've played? These high pressure environments in the Champions League that take a lot out of players, both physically and mentally. So you're getting towards the last stages of a game, and it's tiring, isn't it? It's tiring both physically and mentally to stay switched on, but to also keep running, and it's just not easy. So perhaps there was a little bit of that. Maybe it's a lazy excuse, but perhaps.
A lot of people referencing, John Duran in the live chat here, and I've got to say that was my thought around it. Is that the near postman for a lot of Villa's defensive set pieces seems to be Watkins. Like I say, he wins his fair share in there. He's become very good at that. And I'm not knocking Duran at all. He's a young player. He's done brilliant for Villa this season. Scored so many goals. But when I talk about Watkins playing over him, the stuff Watkins offers the team, again, I feel that's something that's going to be overlooked, is that maybe if Watkins is on the pitch, and it's easy to say in hindsight and speculate about these things, maybe if Watkins is on the pitch, he deals with that because he's really, really good at doing it. And he's been doing it now for 18 months to 2 years and under Unai Emery. So it's not Duran's fault because he's a young player making his way in the game, but they're the kind of situations where Watkins is invaluable. The way he presses and the other things that he offers as well. They're away from the goal scoring and the general stuff that you would associate with the centre forward. Those things are important too, and that's the bit. They're the kind of things, the little things, the fine margins that I think Watkins carries a massive advantage over Duran for me.
Yeah, it's a really, really important point, and it's one of the reasons why Emery's so persistent with keeping Watkins in the team, because he listens, because he does everything asked of him, and it's just a little bit harder to get those instructions into Duran. Not solely because he doesn't speak the language, because they can focus on that language side of things, because they're Spanish speakers, so that's fine. Let's not look at it like that. It's the fact that just Duran just doesn't absorb instructions as well as others yet, and it's going to take some time. So there's a little bit of a trade-off with him there. Exceptional player, huge talent, gets lots of goals. He's always a goal threat, but asking him to do certain things in a game is not as easy as it is with other players.
Yeah, and he scored some brilliant goals this season. John Duran, obviously there's still stuff that can be worked on. He really should have scored that chance as well. I can't stop thinking about you'd have put your life on him scoring, because he's shown such a great range of finishes so far this season, and even last season as well. Yeah, they're two big moments in the game, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going in as soon as when I was watching it, and you, because of his history of scoring so many goals already this season, you just expect it to now. But I suppose he's only human; he's going to miss chances as well. Yeah. Again, his expected goals must be he must have scored more than he's expected to. Surely I haven't compared the two figures, but surely he's exceeding what he's expected to score. So yeah, he's going to miss a few, isn't he? Haaland misses a fair few as well.
Watkins. Yeah. I'm not out here trying to criticise John Duran, but I do think that set pieces point. I do think they are the little things that
definitely 100%
has a huge advantage over.
Yeah, 100%. It's difficult to get instructions into Duran. Really difficult. Villa are working on that.
It's a shame for Villa as well on Saturday, because the dialogue will now be, Villa have played in the Champions League and won in the week again, but they've not managed to win the Premier League game following it. That will be the dialogue, unfortunately. But they did do so much right on Saturday. It's just that one little, well, not a little moment, it's a big moment, that one moment at the end, and they've not won the game, but they're still trending in the right direction. You referenced the winning run. Arsenal. This was my thing. I had a feeling Arsenal-Liverpool would probably be a draw yesterday, so it felt like one of those moments where Villa can take advantage and kind of cement themselves in the upper reaches of the table. And a few times when this has happened, they've had the chance to do it, they haven't quite done it, or it hasn't quite gone their way, and that is a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, but a bit of a crazy weekend, wasn't it? In terms of of results, Brighton are also equally as impressive as Villa this season, and you think they will be kicking themselves this week, knowing that they were 2-0 up and have drew 2-2 with the worst team in the league, and given away.
Pleasure out of saying that, Greg Evans.
They're bottom, aren't they?
Well, they are bottom. I'm just saying you took a lot of pleasure out of saying that.
Bottom of the league. If they're bottom of the league, the worst team. Sorry, lads. And so Brighton will be frustrated in the fact that they've given that away. It was a great weekend for Manchester City, wasn't it? Managed to squeeze past Southampton, shall we say, and then watched results around them go pretty well. I do think, as I've said from the start of the season, Chelsea are going to be Villa's main threat now for the top four. I still believe it's easier for Villa to win the Champions League than it is to finish third, because you've got to. You've got to beat.
Spicy, Greg.
Do you not agree? Well, you've got my point is,
the Champions League, the finish third. I'm not sure.
My point is that to finish third, you have to be better than Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal. Two of those three over 38 games. Now, those three teams have got a very, very good chance of winning the Champions League as well. Is maybe 1-2 teams that are as good as those three teams? You maybe put Barcelona and Real Madrid together.
You said Barcelona at the weekend, jeez.
Yeah, exceptional with very young players. So the point I'm trying to make is not easy to do either. Of course, it's very not easy to win the Champions League. It's not very easy to win to get into third place. But I do think Villa have got a better chance of winning the Champions League than finishing third, because you get through the group stage, which they will now, and then it's just knockout games, and it's not as many games as you would have to play.
That is a huge statement, but who thought we'd be living in a world where you saying that it's not a ridiculous theory.
I think it's just the level of the Premier League. It's so hard to be better than Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, or you got to be better than one of those.
I do think Villa could finish ahead of one of those. It would take some things would have to happen for that to.
Look at Arsenal, for example. Now, Arsenal, they're in a probably a difficult moment, shall we say, because they've got a lot of injuries. The discipline hasn't been there this season, so there was no way that they could have ever imagined how these first 9-10 games would have gone in terms of the players that were absent on the pitch. Yet they're still third in the league. Liverpool have had to change a manager who was the heartbeat of the club, and so much uncertainty was hanging over that club going into the summer. Yet they're comfortably second in the league, and have played some decent teams now. So it is time for us to start saying that Liverpool have had a good start to the season, whereas before we couldn't say that because they're up against lower ranked opponents. And then Man City are Man City, aren't they? They're just a ruthless winning machine that always seem to do it. So it's so difficult. And then Villa have got the added extra now of trying to manage a Champions League campaign that these players have very rarely been in.
Out of the three, who would be the easiest for Villa to finish ahead of? I mean, I will discount Man City completely, I suppose. So out of Arsenal and Liverpool, obviously you cover Liverpool now.
Can't do it. That there isn't an easier one for me. That they're three teams that are challenging for the title.
Yeah, I'm impressed with Liverpool. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with Liverpool. And actually, I called it on Sky in the summer. I said that not buying people is actually going to be a strength of Liverpool, and it would help the likes of Gravenberch to know they're playing it every week. And so far, that's proven true. I did also sound talk about a few weeks ago and got laughed at for this. I said Man City could go the whole season unbeaten, and I got laughed at, but they haven't lost so far.
No, they've had a few wobbles nearly.
Even without Rodri,
yeah.
They're capable of it. I think I said
and De Bruyne as well. The fact that you haven't got Rodri or De Bruyne, it's pretty good, isn't it? I do think the three teams I just think they're just difficult to beat. I think the other teams are getting a little bit closer. Brighton have had a very good start, look pretty impressive. Villa, of course, are already there in fourth. Nottingham Forest, actually, I've watched those a few times this season. Been really impressed with them. Really good side.
Chris Wood.
Yeah,
Chris Wood's having a Benteke season for
Forest, would Tottenham now be thinking, should we have given Nuno a little bit more time, like Wolves did? And it's not a bad manager. Not a bad manager.
No, he's a good man. Tottenham have had a disaster this weekend. Obviously, before we've come on, Eric Ten Hag's been sacked by Manchester United. Do you think that changes things? Do you think that will see an improvement there? And I know it's hard to say because we don't know what they're going to do, but you'd imagine they've got more chance of progressing without Ten Hag. That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for externally looking in and not knowing too much of the ins and outs of the club, he had to deal with a lot of crap, didn't he? For a long time, he had so many issues with Ronaldo, and then Mason Greenwood, and the Jadon Sancho issues, and Harry Maguire, and he had a lot of problems to deal with, I think. So not as easy as perhaps people think managing Man United when they're the second most talked about club in the world. So much pressure on them to go and perform every time a player underperforms their dugout. It's difficult, I think, the whole Rashford situation as well. But I just couldn't see, again, externally looking in, any real style that they were trying to play. I couldn't see what they were trying to do. They just seem to lose so many games. Obviously, the league position is horrendous. It's the worst start, isn't it, to a Premier League campaign ever, is it?
It's awful, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, sure, I just can't believe it lasted that long, to be honest. And, yeah, it's an important appointment for the new owners to make sure they get it right. And yeah, look, there will be no shortage of interested managers who want to go and get that job, because it's a massive job. And you will, as a manager, if you're good enough, you'll always back yourself to be the guy that turns around Man United.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most ludicrous tale across the entirety of the season so far for me that they didn't get rid of him in the summer, because it was so clear that this was going to happen. It was inevitable.
The FA Cup final saved them, didn't it? Saved him. If they'd have lost that FA Cup final, then he'd have gone.
Yeah, it's look, Man U may well improve, but I'm not saying any way in which they finish ahead of Villa this season. I think Villa's main worry to not get into the top four is Chelsea. I think you're right, especially the way Cole Palmer's playing at the moment. He's absolutely ludicrous what he's doing out there. Just before we go, I just want to put this comment up. I put out to it earlier. Does anyone know the tune of the song we played before the players coming out? It seems to be samples of Gangsta's Paradise. I've tried to find it myself. It's an absolute banger, Greg. I don't know whether Villa have remixed it themselves. It's a lovely piece of instrumental music using the Gangster's Paradise there. It's absolutely.
We'll find out for you guys.
Greg's going to find out. Greg's the music man on.
We'll find out.
1974 podcast. He's gonna find out for us. Anything else you want to talk about before we go, Greg?
No. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, Look, it's important to try and always. I think when Villa don't win a game now, it feels like the end of the world because we are just so good. Nowadays, the fact that draws now feel like defeats probably tells you everything that you need to know about. But even when we got drew to Ipswich and Man U, that's how I kind of used to feel when we had a defeat. You know, that says it all, really, doesn't it, Greg?
I think so. Yeah. Look, it's high expectations now, isn't it? I suppose there was the only other thing I wanted to mention was there was quite a few people complaining about the atmosphere at Villa Park on Saturday. Now, having dealt with other clubs around at the atmosphere this season, what I would say, and I really don't mean this disrespectfully, but 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon against Bournemouth is not the fixture that really gets crowds pumped up. And I know this because having written about the Anfield atmosphere, Liverpool played Bournemouth at 3:00 on a fixture, and the atmosphere is pretty dead then. So, unfortunately, these smaller, lower level games don't bring out the best atmospheres, and we can't really judge a stadium atmosphere on one game like that. So, I just spoke to a few friends actually who went to the game, and they said that they went to the Bayern game and then they went to the Bournemouth game. And I was like, you can't compare the two. It's completely different games. So, just for those who are frustrated with the atmosphere, just go and sing a little bit more, and hopefully that will encourage others to.
No, I never noticed it. I mean, I thought the atmosphere was absolutely brilliant on Tuesday against Bologna, as you'd expect, and all the Champions League night games will be like that. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with the atmosphere in particular on Saturday.
I do just think that 3:00 on a Saturday now, even though we talk so much about 3:00 Saturday fixtures and not having enough of them, I don't think it's a great kick-off time anymore for generating a good atmosphere. I think a night game, typically under the lights, is much better. A Friday night, perhaps even, or a Saturday night.
Tea time Saturday seems to be
they're the better ones, aren't they? And as you say, the Champions League games.
Yeah, interesting. As I say, I'm usually quite critical of stuff like that if I notice it, but I didn't notice anything like that at the weekend. Did notice the empty corporate seats, but I won't get into that because but a lot of people are fed up of me talking about stuff like that. But that was my main takeaway crowd-wise. But there's still an awful lot of empty new corporate initiatives that aren't being taken out. And Rachel in St Lewis has mentioned atmosphere is hard, and the Villa Park 1897 group are working hard to help as well. But I know for a fact that the club have stopped talking to them currently, because I've spoken to a few people at the weekend about it. So the club were heavily in dialogue with them about doing stuff, and it's all gone quiet over the last few weeks. I think it's tied in with someone leaving the club who's been in a position for a very, very long time. So it's tied in with that. So maybe the club will get in touch with them at some point. But I know at the moment there's some frustrations around communication with the club with that initiative. Right then, Greg, thank you very much. Thank you to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor us, and thank you to those that have joined us live to have a chat and listen to Greg and mine's thoughts from Saturday. Gonna have to do a match preview. I'm gonna have to do a match preview ahead of the Palace game on Wednesday night. It's a big game every few days at the moment. That's a good thing. Shows that Villa are doing well. Wherever you're taking in this podcast, whether it be via video or audio, you know the drill by now. I say the same things every single week, so I'm not going to say them anymore. But do all those things that really, really help us as a channel. It's really, really appreciated. And thanks to the people that I spoke to at the weekend. I seem to have loads of people come up to me at the weekend at the game and want to chat. It's always a pleasure to hear the stuff you say about the content. So yeah, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. As I say, I'll be back in the next 24 hours with a match preview. So watch out to that and keep your eyes peeled on all our socials so you'll know when videos and podcasts are out and ready to watch or listen to. Thank you again to Greg. And as always, I will end with a big, massive up the Villa.